Although some areas show continued rapid growth, the 2021 member load forecast is showing nearly 14% of members with flat to declining sales. Jay Lundstrom is lead load forecast analyst and says the COVID-19 pandemic is to blame, but so is weather.
About March of 2020, we started to notice that there was this impact of the virus was going to be fairly significant. So what we've done is actually, about April, we came out with an adjustment to our forecast from last year and took a look at the impacts, the short-term impacts along with long-term impacts. What we've noticed short-term is that, yes, initially there was a fairly large decrease in residential load, a fairly large decrease in commercial load. Over time, that actually has given way to weather impacts. So what we're seeing is, initially it was a COVID impact. However, residential loads actually started to increase. We started to see that commercial loads had maintained or actually started to grow as well. But most of what we've seen in the last year has actually just been a relatively mild spring, relatively normal summer, and a fairly mild fall. So what we've seen, the impacts we've seen from that basically have been reflected in our latest forecast. And we've actually seen people leaving buildings, coming back home, and now that's kind of gone the other way. And we've actually seen residential climb a little bit higher than we expected, and some of the commercial loads have kind of leveled off and have maintained where they were. So the impacts of having buildings that need to be cooled, buildings that need to be air conditioned, all the equipment that's still in the building needs to be maintained. However, the need for all the extra air conditioning because of the heat load gain from people and lighting and everything else has kind of leveled off a little bit.
COVID-19 didn't impact energy load in the agricultural sector, but did greatly in the commercial sector. Lundstrom says the two members impacted the most were Mountrail-Williams Electric and McKenzie Electric, both still seeing growth but not as rapid.
The optimism that we saw in Mountrail-Williams and McKenzie Electric's forecast has been somewhat subdued, and what we've seen kind of vacillating between optimism and pessimism over the last few years. And what we feel that we have now is a fairly decent forecast for those members. Still growing very, very rapidly, still a fair amount of development happening. The demand for the commodities that the oil producers produce actually has gone negative. We've seen a dramatic decline in the amount of oil and gas that's needed in the United States. So what we've seen there is a fairly pessimistic opinion on the growth for the Williston Basin, and that's reflected in our latest forecast. Those loads have actually, the growth for those loads has actually significantly declined from previous forecasts. And so that's what we're seeing going forward.
Coal mining in northeast Wyoming is dropping off a lot with the push away from coal and toward natural gas and renewables. Lundstrom says that has widespread impacts because that coal has been used in power plants nationwide.